We've had our opening sessions. We've heard in the last panel some reflections on the Sustainable Development Finance outlook about the challenges and the opportunities that we face over the next 5 to 10 years. And we started to hear a lot more about integrated national financing frameworks. We're going to hear a lot more about them in the panel to come. But before we start the panel, we have a short video that introduces the concepts and shows a little bit about how it's being used in countries around the world. If you could play the video, please.
Together we have the tools and the vision to transform global challenges into shared progress, leaving no one behind.
There's been a mislink between the national development plans and the financial resources needed to achieve them. And that is a key issue with this integrated national financing framework.
Djibouti, comme beaucoup d'autres pays, s'est vu le service de la dette multiplié par 3 tout d'un coup. Il fallait donc imaginer quel modèle de financement. Et c'est là où vraiment nous avons trouvé cet outil INFF extrêmement utile.
Egypt has launched its first integrated national financing strategy. It focuses on measuring the financing gap for the 7 priority sectors such as social protection, health, education, transportation, women's empowerment, sanitation, and climate change.
The financing strategy enables us to identify the concrete steps to strengthen our system, not only to absorb the traditional donor resources, but also to attract more private investment while making more effective use of our state budget.
By providing a comprehensive framework for aligning national development priorities with the financing strategies, INFFs enable Kyrgyzstan to mobilize resources effectively from both public and private sectors.
The collaborative approach not only enhances for the effectiveness of implementation efforts, but also fosters a conducive environment for private sector investments and economic growth.
En el caso específico de la presupuestación por programa, nos da la posibilidad de hacer un uso más eficiente y eficaz del presupuesto.
For the first time, the government and public investment has managed to access key private capital and they managed to issue a green bond. This definitely results of the outcome of INFF.
Indonesia is actively working to bridge the SDG financing gap by promoting innovations such as thematic bonds.
This bond helped to complete basic vaccination for 10 million babies. Targeted to provinces with poverty rates above the national average, it provides scholarship for the 11.4 million elementary school students.
Within the framework of the INFF, the sustainability reporting guidance has been developed. And this guidance helps listed companies on how to issue a sustainability disclosure according to the international standards.
And INFF Mobilize would strengthen our national framework for financing the medium-term development plan and NDC.
Our INFF integrates gender consideration across its objectives, recognizing the uneven impact of climate change on the most vulnerable segments of society and ensuring that our adaptation and mitigation strategies empower all community members.
We ensured that the metropolitan, the municipal, and district assemblies play a central role in financing the sub-national levels, which have become the first step towards the development of an INFF at the national level.
So the sub-regional government of Nigeria has also committed to INFF and their ongoing public finance initiatives in all the 36 states of the Federation to establish capacity to deploy SDG-aligned financial instruments.
We see the INFF as providing a very critical role in the Philippines. It's that tripartite partnership, government, private sector, civil society, that hopefully can make a sustained difference in the lives of the communities that we serve.
To date, 17 governments have a financing strategy for their sustainable goals using the INFF approach. Over 50 countries are reforming public and private financing policies, mobilizing and aligning tens of billions of dollars for the SDGs and Paris Agreement. How can we make finance work better for people and planet in your community?
So So now to guide us through the state of integrated national financing frameworks, please allow me to welcome Jenny Krish, Senior Policy Specialist on Financing for Development at CEDA.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I guess it's still almost morning at least. My name is Jenny Krish, and I'm very honored to be moderating this panel with distinguished guests from across the globe, across the INFF universe. We can all look forward to a conversation where we reflect on progress and challenges of INFF in aligning finance to sustainable development. And to do so, I would like to welcome my fellow panelists, Her Excellency Samrita Sawasau, from the State Minister of Finance of Ethiopia. Welcome. Sarita Moya, National Planning Secretary from the National Planning Secretariat of Ecuador. Welcome. And Samir Ade-Sheikh, the Principal Advisor and Director of Cabinet, the Ministry of Economy and Finance in charge of Industry from Djibouti. Mohammed Salim, the Commissioner for National Planning, Sectoral Development and Poverty Reduction, the Planning Commission in Zanzibar. Welcome up also, last but not least, Tom Below, the Director of the Sustainable Finance Hub at UNDP. Great. 2025 is in many ways a critical year for survival, or maybe a revival, of the Sustainable Development Goals. To achieve the Agenda 2030 will require both aligning financing and mobilizing additional financing. It will need a big push. That was also highlighted this morning. Since 2015, countries have pioneered the development of a more integrated approach, and we've all been part of that journey. And to spearhead, they have all spearheaded development and implementation of financing strategies. So it's great to have so many countries here today to share expertise and learning, and learn together in a community of global partners, you all in the audience here. With the Financing for Development conference in Seville in June, there are opportunities to really strike a balance between development of the international financing architecture and at the same time development of the national financing architecture. They are intertwined and mutually reinforcing, and both are so critical to achieve the SDGs. So I really hope for the conversation today here to guide us into F54 and the years to come, and to learn from experiences within all these different country settings. But my first question goes to you, Her Excellency Samrita Sawasau. Ethiopia's integrated sustainable financing strategy is driving reforms to mobilize and enhance impact of both public and private finance in line with priorities set out in the Ethiopia 2030 10-year development plan. It emphasizes the importance of a robust governance and coordination framework and institutionalization of public-private dialogue to really foster collaboration and innovation. Can you share with us some insights from the work with your financing strategy, and maybe share us also some experiences of your approach to governance and coordination? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm very happy to be here, very grateful for UNDP to have organized this and the government of Spain for hosting this event. Ethiopia is among the countries that have really worked on the framework, and this is an important step that we have taken. For us, it is has been an experience in bringing together the aspirations that we have for developing as a country versus understanding what more needs to be done to make this a reality. Our national goals are well aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals, and yet we find that poverty, growing population, the demands for job, crisis from climate conflict, all this affects attaining those goals that we've set out. Without the right financing in place, both from the public and other sources, we find that we are very much delayed, and this is pressing on ensuring that we find ourselves in positions where stabilities, including macroeconomic space, political stabilities are threatened because we are not able to have accelerated move towards development. So we are in this position as government trying to really tap into what are the alternative mechanisms out there, how do we do this very quickly, who can come to support us. And we find that both at national level and at the international level, we are not as coordinated as we should be. This is both at the efforts that we do at the local level versus efforts at national level and efforts at the international level. I sit at the Ministry of Finance, and so I see this pressing and various efforts that are happening, but all seem to be going on in silos. Unless we bring ourselves together in a very coordinated manner, attempts at national level coordination will not solve the issues that we have. We have to be very deliberate when we talk about private sector. We have to be very deliberate in looking into our policies, our regulations, monitoring what we're doing, measuring the results, and then ensuring that there is adequate investments, and it's our investments that are important in infrastructure that have to happen as we try to create the enabling environment. So how do we do de-risking? How do we do blended finance while the thinkings and operations are happening at silos? Of course, capacities at government, national level need to be strengthened, no doubt. Digitalization needs to happen. I was talking to my colleagues from Nigeria, having the right workforce to make sure that we are collecting the revenues, mobilizing domestic resource as needed is critical. So then the demand that I'm sure countries like mine, in times where our debt burdens are very high and we have very limited fiscal space, would be to really ask all of us: Are we moving in the right direction? Are we enabling ourselves or positioning ourselves to tap into the resource and make the investments happen in a manner that has sense? Trust for me comes in both ways. As I'm sure all of us here agree, our ambitions and our aims are to develop and grow, and yet really looking into hearing the voice of countries as we ask what are the sensible investments or what are the resources that we can tap into. So we have to have also mechanisms whereby we need to reflect and think what investments are best done through public resource, what can be done jointly, where does localization make best sense, and how does this all come together. Unless the international system is coordinated enough, we find ourselves in limbo, not really sure what the INFF strategy is bringing to the table because we're dealing with various actors. So getting the MFIs together, getting the multilaterals to work together, bilateral partners to champion against, jointly is very critical. So for me, coordination at various levels, monitoring the results through this facility, reporting on them, and really looking into impact versus process is critical. So this is where we are in terms of the Ethiopian space, but really undertaking multiple reforms that are very critical in driving improving our fiscal space, generating domestic resources that are really significant and important in pushing our development agenda forward. But we're very much, and I want to reflect to the previous panel, very much aware that ODA is declining, that unless we are very transparent and innovative in our approach, we know the old ways of working will not take us forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for highlighting the critical aspect of coordination and governance. And I'll leave a question hanging for you also on what would you say is the success factor in involving private sector in a conversation and dialogue, as well as civil society. And I think we're all curious to learn more. But I'll turn my head now to Djibouti. And considering Djibouti's unique position as an economy heavily reliant on ports and trade, and exposure to global economic shocks, can you share how the INFF approach has helped Djibouti to develop its financing strategy and to mobilize both public and private financing in support of economic diversification and resilience building? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a presentation. I don't know. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Yesterday, when I arrived to the airport of Barcelona, there was the immigration officer, a nice guy, looked at my passport and said, Djibouti. So I told him, yes, sir, from Djibouti. I think he was ashamed of asking me, where is Djibouti? But I assumed that. And the fine gentleman was so confused that he handed me over the passport without even stamping it. So, I knew that I would be in trouble tomorrow for traveling out. So I gave him the passport and said, sir, please, can you stamp the passport? And so this introduction is just to tell you that islands and small countries have a lot of challenges that a lot of countries don't have. So I will start by that. So how does it work? Yes. So this is Djibouti. It's at the Horn of Africa, small country. We just reached the population of 1 million population. The GDP is 4 billion, and we had a steady growth of 7% for the last 10 years, except the 2 years of the COVID, of course. Our economy is based on ports, but this also is another challenging because we are heavily dependent on one sector. I will be speaking about that later on. Again, Djibouti is situated in a very busy shipping line. Almost 25% of the world trade is just passing by Djibouti. If we come back to the INFF, it was launched 3 years ago, and we have adopted it recently. The figure here, 7 billion, the financing needs is not correct. Actually, the financing needs is over 14 billion US dollar. And we have gone through all the formulation processes, which includes the government, civil society, and this is a picture of it. So, and also a multi-stakeholder participation has been also run throughout the whole process. So what is the financing strategy? First, of course, increase the domestic resource mobilization. we depend heavily on foreign aid and foreign ODAs. So now our third generation of national development plan is we are focusing on strengthening our fiscal policy and targeting the domestic resource mobilization. The second strategy is accelerating the private finance initiative, which is the PPPs concept, and also strengthen our institution and business climate. The third strategy is broaden our donor landscape and also establish an aid coordination, which is already existing in Djibouti but needs to be strengthened. So what is our next step? Update and align the existing financing strategy with, as I said, the upcoming National Development Plan. It's the third one. We just finished the second one. And also have the steering committee of the INFF. And I think the biggest one is the green taxonomy, because we want to tap into the climate finance, which is huge, as you may know. So, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and I think for also bringing economic diversification and resilience into what the INFF can hold together and contribute with. I'll now turn to Zanzibar, to Mohammed Salim, Commissioner for National Planning. Zanzibar's financing strategy was developed to support the delivery of Zanzibar's development plan with a strong focus on blue economy. What would you say are the key milestones so far in implementation of the strategy, and what are your plans for monitoring of its impact?
Thank you very much. I think I haven't have any challenges that my colleague from Djibouti faced while he's arriving at the airport. Because Zanzibar is a semi-autonomous country. We have our own government, but again, under the United Republic of Tanzania. So whatever we're using in terms of international collaboration, international boundaries, we're using a passport of United Republic of Tanzania. So whenever they saw my passport, they say, oh, you're from Tanzania? Yes, from Tanzania. But inside, they found it Zanzibar. So we haven't faced the problem that my colleague faced, because Zanzibar is an autonomous country with about 50 plus small islands. 3 of them are major and 2 are inhabited, with a population of 1.8 million people. Regarding the INFF, yes, we have introduced the INFF in our fiscal and budget implementations and plans about a year and so ago. We are focusing on, as an island economy, focusing on exploring blue economy potentials. Among the sectors within the blue economy is fisheries, aquaculture, marine resources, oil and gas, tourism, as well as seaports and marine transportation. The introduction of INFF in Zanzibar, we have milestones, including growth, economic growth, whereby substantially we are having about 7.4 GDP of our country, leveraging marine resources and boosting economic activities, sustainability, whereby to promote coastal and tourism ecosystem, as well as coastal conservation, protecting biodiversity and addressing impact on climate change. All of these has been adopted in our plans. INFF we have been heard this morning about localization. We have localized by social inclusion our local community, including women and youth, into blue economy activities. As I said earlier, that as an island country, focusing on blue economy, it has been focusing on job creation, whereby fisheries in renewable energy sector, as well as marine biodiversification to generate employment. Priority areas whereby mainly, of course, in tourism, but again, we have been opening doors in investing in maritime, transport, and in trade, whereby we are having about 3 ports currently on a pipeline. One of them is publicly financed, and the other one is the jointly, PPP. And also, blending financing has been able to generate more investors into this sector, trade, into ports, transportation. We are also attracted investment in renewable energy, whereby we have some projects. We call it Zanzibar Transformation of Energy Sector, ZESTA. It is under the DP's development. We also governance and institutional strengthening in our systems. We have developed the blue economy policy, as well as that's implementing spatial marine plan within our plans as far as INFF is concerned. The INFF in Zanzibar is a new concept, so we have to heavily building capacity of our people. As again, apart from social inclusion in the economy, economic activity in the blue economy, but also in the government sector, whereby to create more space for attracting public partnership investment. Of course, we are expecting and we are addressing the challenges of addressing this through monitoring and evaluation. We have been challenged by overfishing in this sector, whereby this policy it has to address the overfishing so as to become more sustainable. Although we need investment in ocean economy, but also it has to be moderated and has to be well acknowledged for the sustainability of the resources. And the climate change, in fact, such as rising of sea level, we have some areas whereby the land has been reclaimed by the salt water. So it's also the issue has to need to be addressed along with our INFF. And lastly, while addressing the blue economy as a key leading sector within Zanzibar, the issue of SDG is well addressed, and along with African agenda also aligned with our plans. And lastly, I would like to conclude that we have, as I said, Zanzibar is semi-autonomous, but we have Zanzibar Development Vision of 2050, which launched in 2020, while in Tanzania mainland, or the Union, we have Tanzania Development Vision, which is expiring this year, 2025. So you can see how we are moving alongside in Zanzibar while adopting 2 long-term plans within our economy and economic plans. Likewise, we have midterm plans. We call it Zanzibar Development Plan, 5-year plan, 2025, 2021, 2026. While we're also implementing under United Republic of Tanzania, the other one which is called 5-year plans, which expiring this year. So we have those kind of alignment of not only within Zanzibar plans, but also at the national-wide plan and international agendas as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and also for talking to climate, integrating climate aspects into your INFF and with the blue economy. I would now like to turn to Ecuador, to Saria Moya, the National Planning Secretary. Ecuador is leveraging the INFF approach to align financing strategies with national development priorities, including NDCs. So really a perfect bridge into further aspects of climate integration. How would you say that integrating climate resilience into public expenditure frameworks and investment management systems has strengthened Ecuador's capacity to mobilize and allocate resources effectively? The floor is yours. Yeah, sure.
I do have a presentation for this. So, thank you. I don't know if it's...
Seems like it's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I can start until it's ready. But, well, I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I have to share what we are doing as a country. We know that recent efforts have emphasized the need that we have for the integration of the SDGs into national planning. But the next step is aligning fiscal systems with these goals, expanding the scope of fiscal sustainability beyond the traditional revenue and expenditure analysis. We need to deepen the concept of fiscal sustainability that has traditionally been discussed, as I said, with a revenue and expenditure approach. It is defined as sustainability is defined as the ability of a government to sustain its current spending, tax, and other related policies in the long run without threatening its solvency. But what could threaten our income? What could change our priorities from one day to another? Our taxes are collected from sales, or income, or productive sector. But what if our productive sector and what if our private sector is not adapting to climate change? Then where is our fiscal sustainability? And this is a question that has given a lot of reflection to our government. A clear example is the energy crisis that we just faced in our country. More than 70% of our energy comes from hydroelectrics. This means that with less water, we have less energy. And we faced power outages from 6 to 14 hours due to climate change. And this impacted negatively into our commerce, our productive systems, and this, of course, hurt our fiscal system. Even if we did this former year, we did a change in our fiscal policies. We switched our taxes rates. We increased them. And even if we increase them, we face this other problem. The climate impact on public finances and the productive systems cannot continue to go unnoticed, and we need to develop tools to guarantee efficient use of public resources, and it's vital to ensure coherent financing policies. INFFs constitute a crucial approach for this purpose, enable countries to align public and private financing with the development priorities. Ecuador's INFF is in its early stages of implementation, but we have established significant methodologies and instruments to facilitate the coordination with the private sector, financiers, and investors to allocate resources towards the SDGs. As Ecuador National Secretary for Planning, I believe that these frameworks are crucial to bridge the gap between the aspirations and actionable financing strategies that truly advance sustainable development. I will give you some examples of this. Ecuador has developed the Financing the SDGs and Addressing Chronic Child Malnutrition Program, collaborating with UNDP and government institutions using the INFF approach. And this has helped us to develop more tools and more methodologies that can be applied to other national programs. For the block of the financing strategy, we have developed, for example, the medium-term debt management strategy. And this was published along 3 years ago, and it gives us outlines for responsible debt management, goals, objectives, instruments, and actions. We also have the Ecuador annual borrowing plan every year and it's published every year for its national state budget, and it's updated regularly. We also have Ecuador's Debt and Financing Committee, and this was established a year and a half ago, and this gives us guidelines for the negotiation processes of the non-refundable international cooperation obtained through external public debt swaps for public interest projects. Also, in the same year, we developed a framework for issuing sovereign green bonds. The Ministry of Economy can issue green bonds to finance eligible green projects or finance public debt under improved conditions. Ecuador also is developing a comprehensive taxonomy that will apply to both the public and the private sector, alongside mechanisms for labeling green public investment projects executed by the central government. Ecuador has developed several instances of intra- and interinstitutional coordination that allow to implement its INFF. Also, I would like to share that Ecuador has made important efforts to find sustainable financing alternatives, such as the issuance of a sovereign social housing bond, the first one in the region, and for $400 million, which allowed thousands of citizens to access to their first home. Also, we have two different debt for nature swaps, and I'll finish with these two examples. The first one took place a year ago, and we achieved the reduction of our debt stock for $900 million, and part of the service of the new debt is allocated on projects to protect the Galapagos Island. And the second one we just carried out in 2024, and this allowed us to have a debt stock reduction for around $500 million. On this occasion, part of the new service will be allocated on the conservation of projects of the Ecuadorian Amazon. So these are just a few examples of how INFF has impacted in our financing, and we've already been able to reduce the debt stock that we have.
Thank you so much for sharing this, even without slides. Excellent, and really interesting to hear also your kind of entry point into the tax income being throttled by climate and various aspects of that. And I think you well highlight also the vast array of areas in which the INFF can materialize for each country. So thank you for that. We will leave a few minutes also for questions from the floor. So while I leave the floor to Tom Bilo in a minute, please think through possible questions to also ask the panelists. But Tom, after hearing all these country examples, how would you see that these are contributing to the wider and global process of INFFs? And what key trends do you see in implementation and adaptation?
Thanks, Jenny, and it was wonderful to listen to those presentations. You always listen to the country experiences and you're just begging for more information and an opportunity to dig deeper into those experiences. So I will be as brief as I possibly can, Jenny, and just share a few slides, I think. So if there's that little clicker down there, that would be great. As I was listening to the presentations, I mean, obviously, every country context and case shows how different integrated national financing frameworks are from context to context. But there were some obvious similarities. I mean, the biggest, of course, is linking finance to impact. And that's what finance for development is all about. So I think all of our presentations have really shown that. And also that all sources of finance can be linked to impact. It's not just niche instruments, it's not just impact investment or other sources of finance which might be rather a small microcosm of the financial architecture. It's all sources of finance that our colleagues are talking about. And finally, obviously, but can't be restated enough, these are country-led processes that our colleagues have articulated with a particular ask for different stakeholders to collaborate together around country-led priorities. Private sector, public, development institutions, and finance institutions. So some resounding similarities. I'm going to show you a snapshot of data. The INFF facility implements a survey every year. This is the fourth survey that has been implemented. It's currently ongoing. It involves consultations in 90 countries. So it involves UNDP country offices reaching out to governments and other stakeholders and really trying to take stock of progress on integrated national financing frameworks. It's a bottom-up process to inform the evidence at the global level of how countries are grappling with the issue of finance for development. The report is ready to be published in Seville at the fourth conference on financing for development, but we're only a third of the way through the consultations leading to evidence. So it's a snapshot and it's a part of the way through. We actually work in 90 countries. 86 have articulated that they're taking forward integrated national financing frameworks. And the first thing I would say is it's such an awful set of words to say INFFs. And some countries aren't calling their financing plan, their financing strategy an INFF, probably because it's quite a difficult set of words to bring together. And I think it's really important to recognize that. For example, Mexico is taking forward a sustainable finance strategy. It has all the hallmarks of an integrated national financing framework. It's just not called it. And that's really important as we look at the evidence of progress in taking forward this agenda. Of the 86 countries that have articulated they're taking forward this approach, 17 actually have published operational financing strategies. 50 of that 86 are already taking forward reforms. So it's already very much in progress. There are a number of numbers here, and this is really just to show the breadth of financial reform that is encompassed in an integrated national financing framework. You'll see here at the bottom, there's 180 reforms that are being implemented as part of integrated national financing frameworks, from statements of intent to deliver on those reforms that were articulated in 2023. So again, it's to show the breadth, but also to show the momentum with which INFFs are building financial reform for sustainable development. You can't see all the words there, but that articulates the breadth of of different reforms underway. I wish I had much more time to articulate some of the integrated reform packages that we're seeing in these different country contexts, but I did just want to articulate one from the public finance side, which shows really how this idea of mission-oriented finance or development outcome-led approaches to finance are taking hold. And you'll see on the left the example of Mexico, which I mentioned earlier, has a sustainable finance strategy, and they have now accumulatively issued over $20 billion of SDG-aligned bonds. Now, that in itself, of course, is a remarkable achievement of mission-oriented financing, but it's linked to broader integrated reforms, including budget reforms that enable those sovereign bonds to be tracked through the public financial management system of the government. And again, it's those integrated approaches to finance across sources and instruments that we are seeing come through so strongly. I'm going to have to skip, because Jenny is looking at me very menacingly, to the final slides. This is just to show the quantum of finance that is being leveraged and aligned through INFFs coming out from the survey. In fact, there's an additional 8 billion tracked in the survey already from this year on leverage. But I don't want us to become overly obsessed with the numbers, because it's not just the transactions, it's also the institutional reforms that are taken forward through INFFs that are so critical. Whether it be SDG finance cells being established in ministries of finance, or climate cells in ministries of finance, whether it be public financial management reforms throughout the government's budgeting process, whether it be policy and regulation on financial disclosure. These sorts of policy and institutional shifts show the long-term nature of the reforms that are being taken forward. Don't worry, Jenny, I'm going to skip that slide. It just shows you the demand for technical assistance coming from the process. This was something Oliver raised in light of the FFD4 outcome document, just quite how much demand for technical assistance and capacity development there is, which is why the INFF facility was established, as our colleagues mentioned this morning, to try and broker support for these country-led demands on TA and capacity development. I will leave the slide there, Jenny, and pass back to you.
Thank you so much, Tom, for laying out that global landscape and trend in INFFs. Oliver Schwank, I don't see you now, but maybe the mission-oriented financing is the catchy phrase for the FFD. Thank you, Tom, also for highlighting the need of technical assistance, and I think one of the accountability mechanisms that the INFF facility can provide, and really being accountable to supporting countries on their INFF journey. I have a lot of questions to our panelists. I'm sure you do too, so I want to give this opportunity in case of any question from the room. So please wave your hand if you have a question, and we'll give the word to you. We have one down there, please.
Me? Yes.
And
Hello.
please introduce yourself also.
Yes, I'm going to be the first one. Thank you very much for the presentation. My name is Ivan Stola. I work at the OECD for several years, supporting different governments in public governance, planning, monitoring, evaluation, public financial management. And also, as I have a firm also that has worked on INFF with Nigeria, other countries in their development finance strategies. And it's a really interesting subject. I would like to congratulate you for the efforts. And as we have been discussing, the entry points can be multiple entry points now, from terms of governance, planning, budgeting, private investment, innovative finance. And at the same time, contexts are different, but when you start discussing with different countries, challenges are the same. Fiscal space, debt services, lack of capacities at the public administration level, a lot of turnaround of staff, so keeping the eye in the long term when staff turn very quickly is quite difficult. So my question for the representatives of national government maybe is, in this experience, in your experience, what would be the entry point? Because I have seen a challenge that has to do with prioritization. When you start listing problems, you start listing 20 different priorities that you would like to tackle, and then the strategist has a lot of priorities that then the public administration cannot absorb. And that is something that, okay, you have a shopping list of priorities, but going from strategy to impact, as you were saying, linking finance with results, missions, outcomes, is quite challenging. So in your experience, because you need quick wins at the beginning as well, even if you hold it long term, what will be that quick win or that entry point that you would like to focus to make this transformation more sustainable? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maybe you want to answer? Yeah?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. I always qualify INFF as a psychologist because it tells you a lot about yourself that you might not know. So for Djibouti, our shortcomings was coordination. So the INFF has taught us how to coordinate. And one of our biggest shortcomings was that the Ministry of Finance is a different ministry when it comes to the budget. We have two separate ministries. So, but luckily, we have the planning under our own. So usually the Ministry of Finance, Economy and Finance is a transversal. It touches upon every aspect of the country. So INFF is embedded within us. We're lucky to have that. But in other countries, it might be the planning. Ideally, I think if the planning and the Ministry of Finance are together, it could be a success factor. I don't know for the other countries how they are, but this is the case of Djibouti. Thank you.
Great. Maybe a second response to the same question.
I will say it's to find the institution that can prioritize those needs. For example, in Ecuador is the National Secretariat of Planning. And we have the duty to prioritize among all the needs of the ministries. But sometimes this institution in our country can be a Ministry of Planning or even the same Ministry of Finance. If the institution is not inside of the Ministry of Finance, that can be a challenge because you don't know if they are talking. For example, in Ecuador right now, we have a relation with the Ministry of Finance that it's very close and that has allowed us to prioritize the budget. For example, right now we are working together for the next National Development Plan, even if we are under a period of election time. We are setting the methodologies so that the work that we did during this year and a half, because in Ecuador we had a government for a year and a half right now due to politics, but some actors thought that maybe in this year and a half the National Development Plan will be just a transition, kind of development plan. But we actually did some innovations to set the path so that the ministries know how to prioritize their needs with the SDGs. And I liked that someone said, are you coloring the budget or are the SDGs guiding? And this is something that we did with our National Development Plan, and it's aligning at 94.4% to the SDGs. And with this framework, we can work together to first articulate better with the Ministry of Environment, because climate change sometimes is just managed by the Ministry of Environment, but actually right now the National Secretariat of Planning is working with the Ministry of Environment to help them see the needs of the other sectors linked to climate adaptation. So I think it's finding that institution or those actors that can help you prioritize, to really prioritize the budget, and then giving them the tools to do it. And I want to thank the UNDP, because they have helped us in Ecuador to really come together, the Ministry of Finance, the National Secretariat of Planning, and the Ministry of Environment, so that we can work together, aligning all the other actors that need to be here, and not only inside of the government, but actually the private sector, the local governments. They are also learning these new frameworks, and I think it's the start from that has helped us.
Thank you so much, and maybe that's a perfect bridge to also highlighting some of the aspects from Ethiopia on coordination and involvement of private sector and other stakeholders.
Yes, thank you very much again, because I come from the Ministry of Finance and other colleagues are probably from planning. The need for prioritization is a day-to-day exercise that we have to make. How do we unlock the potential of a country? Where should the investments be? What do we need to do differently than what we've been doing in the past are questions that we ask ourselves all the time. Of course, efficiency in the administration, transparency, using digital tools to track, the PFM reforms are very critical in this aspect, but also ensuring that we are widening the space for the public and the private sector to understand what the vision of the country is. The decisions are often to go on multiple tracks, to allow for import substitution, to allow for trade reforms, to allow for customs, energy sector reforms, logistics sector reforms, all to happen simultaneously while we do human development. So again, the challenge comes in asking the questions, are we making the best use of the resources that we have at hand? When we talk of resilience building, for instance, in Ethiopia, we've prioritized food security, but we want the agricultural space to be a space where private sector comes in, where there is value chains addition, where our cold chains, our transport system, our infrastructure, our road connectivity to the port, our railway, everything comes in together. So while we do the regulatory change as government, we again very prioritize that the conversations with the private sector has to happen. We learn private sector engage only when it makes sense, and so sharing the vision, making sure that the impacts are tangible, quick enough to show returns, and then looking to mechanisms where we can leverage and support the private sector to push and move things forward is what needs to happen in our space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We have one more question, and that will be the last one from the floor. And while listening to that, I also want to give all the panelists an opportunity to reflect on the very last stage of this session. I want you to have the 30-second elevator pitch with a key challenge and priority to advance in the new FFD agenda. What would be your ask, the 30-second one? But last question from the floor.
Right, thank you. Well, I spoke before, but just to remind, my name is Mahmoud. The biggest elephant in the room, not this room alone, but almost every room in developing economies is debt and debt service. And the 4 countries with us, I thank them very much for their presentations, but they are in different stages and levels of dealing with debt. Some of them are in better shape than others, but debt is a very big concern, especially with the point raised by Ecuador on issues related to alignment with SDGs that's not just colored, but genuinely designed to be based on the alignment with the SDGs and beyond that. But if in a typical country now in Africa that spends more on debt service than what it does on education, health, essential services, we're left now with a tool which is useful. I'm an academic, so no offense. It may end up just to be technical academic tool because you go to the budget and the budget committees, you tell you, well, good luck. We already have our items spent. Debt service is number 1. Wages and salaries are number 2. 3 are basically the security spending. So where do you see now the integrated national financial framework useful in the design of budgets, aligning the priorities, if there are any priorities left after that? And where do you see from the FFD in the future being designed here in Seville to deal with this issue? Do you see it as a prevention tool? Do you see it as a kind of prioritization tool? Or it is just helpful if the time allows for better use of it? Thanks.
Thanks. Would any of the panelists like to respond to or react to that? Yeah? Yeah?
Thank you. This is a very sensitive subject to all our countries. Debt is, it was a financing tool at the beginning, and it turned out to be a burden, a very big burden. For the case of Djibouti, we are discussing with our creditors. IMF tried to help during the COVID. I think they came in a good faith, but instead of helping, they have worsened things. I hope nobody from the IMF is here, no? They came to us and they say, okay, you have 3 years, 2 years of, you will not pay for your debt services. And we try to, focus on the COVID. And after the 3 years, they came back and they said, okay, guys, COVID is finished now. You need to pay for the 3 years past. So that was a very, and I think all the LDCs have gone through the same process. So we are doing our best to first accommodate our creditors because they were here when we needed them, especially in the infrastructure and burden. The debt burden needs to be focused on the FFD4. Antonio Guterres was very clear about that. Countries and debts, development is not going to be only with debt. So I think this is my message for, thank you.
Thank you. And there are so many voices that we'd like to hear. I say like Tom, the more you hear, the more you want to hear. The very, very short, because we need to wrap up this panel, but a very, very short response then.
A very short response. Yeah. The INFF is an important instrument for us because of the very reasons that you stipulated. Unless we are in a position where we have genuine conversations about where we are on the debt crisis, where countries are with this limited fiscal space, we will not be able to move forward. We are stuck in a scenario for countries like Ethiopia with 120 million population, strong need for social protection, wages have to be paid, security challenges are a reality of our day-to-day operations, and so the conversation needs to happen. I'm glad my brother comes from World Bank experience. if these processes are not linked together, if the conversations are not all coming jointly, again, the world is in this space where we are not moving forward. So there will not be a way for us to attain the SDGs unless we come together and address this challenge. As governments, the concerns are we've had bad debt, we've had good debts as well. The debts have been important in building infrastructure that is very important for transportation, for basic services, and logistics. These are critical for any growth and development of any country. Now, we need to segregate between this bad debt, good debt, and how do we manage and create a fiscal space that is actually tangible. As much as we're trying to mobilize domestic resource, again, the reality is that we are in a very stifled situation, and so the INFF, for me, is a very important tool, only if we come all together and allow for this conversation to proceed forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those important words. I think we'll end this panel just by the one priority that you would like to see going into F54. It is difficult because it's not one, right? But the elevator pitch, what would be? Maybe we'll start with you.
I will have to repeat the same. Again, getting the international community to come together, getting national government structures to work together, getting the local space also to come together. So a very strong coordination and reporting and a regular evaluation mechanism.
Great.
I will say, now we know the importance of talking together the planning institutions with the financing institution, not only at a national level, but also at the international level with the multilaterals talking and with the same language. But I think that we need to right now move forward. We know that in planning we have the planning process, the implementation, and then following up. And I think that we need more mechanisms to see the impact that the investments are having in our countries, and this has to pass on the local governments also, because they have, well, at least in developing countries, local governments don't have access to these tools. It's hard for them due to their budgets.
Thank you.
I would say cooperation between our countries so we can learn from each other, and also cooperation with the international community, the donors, the partners. I think by that way we can see the light through the tunnel. Thank you.
Thank you. Zanzibar.
Thank you very much. I could say that we have our vision and aspirations need to be filled and fulfilled, which basically the financing gap has to be completed and filled. Again, through raising financing, adopting of policies, which is coherence, resilience, risk-informed by all the players, as well as supportive diversification. This could meet the objective of not only our national visions and plans, but also INFF framework, as well as the SDGs be attainable. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last word, Tom.
Yeah, I think there was a Minister of Finance who once said that finance is too important to be left to ministries of finance alone. And I'd extend that to finance institutions alone. So as we move into FFD4 and we're looking at finance for sustainable development, I really hope that we can build the coalition, the set of constituencies working on finance for sustainable development moving forward. We had a conversation yesterday being here in Barcelona with the Barcelona Finance Center for Europe and the Government of Catalonia, and the expertise, the experience, the advice that this set of private sector actors could provide to the global discussion on FFD, as well as the country-level discussion on integrated national financing frameworks, I feel is untapped. So there's a real opportunity in FFD4 to bring these different constituencies together behind these INFFs.
Thank you to all of you for so interesting learnings and conversations. It's almost impossible, I think, to highlight or bring some key takeaways after this discussion about the need for working public-private, localizing also by social inclusion, the need for coordination and governance, strengthening monitoring and evaluation, climate integration and resilience, and maybe to end by then build coalitions as a way to really scale and advance into FFD4. So with that, I end this panel. Thank you to the panelists, and we look forward to have this as a stepping stone into the conversations during these 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenny.